So when I was growing up, I lived in a house with a really loving family, and my mom told us about Jesus growing up. But when I was really young, I experienced some pretty severe sexual abuse as a little girl, and then again, this happened as a middle schooler and again in high school by somebody that was supposed to be recruiting high school students into the Marine Corps. And what he was doing is he was recruiting young girls down to his office. And so at the very young age, my mind was pretty skewed on what my body was made for. That led me down a path of complete destruction. I began to drink really heavily at a very young age, about 14, and then that led into drugs. And eventually, by the time I was about 17, I was doing pretty much anything I could get my hands on, from cocaine to drinking and being very sexually active. And it got to a point in my life where I was so desperate for something or someone that I didn't care whether or not I lived or died at this point. And so at the very lowest, I attempted to take my own life. I ended up in the hospital and then a psychiatric inpatient. And so about this time, I had reconnected with a sister and her husband, and they had invited me to church. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I want to go to church, but out of being polite, I said yes. And I remember that morning, the pastor talking about Jesus, and he explained Jesus in a way to me that I had never really heard before. And so as I sat there with not much left of my life, because truly it was pretty broken at that point, I just looked up with tears streaming down my face, and I accepted Jesus that morning right there at church. I really got to experience what it felt like to have new life. Like when we talk in church about new life, I truly got to experience new life in Jesus and in his forgiveness and in his faithfulness. I think that's the biggest thing looking back that I didn't expect to walk in with crumbs, broken pieces, and to walk out with new life, to walk out feeling like God had taken all that weight I walked in with and that it was gone. And that didn't mean my life was perfect or fixed, or that there wasn't going to be years ahead of me to work through and to work out. But I do remember leaving feeling light, like that burden had been lifted off of me. When I came to church that day, my life was wrecked. It was absolutely wrecked. I had nothing left to give. And God took the very little bit that I had. And 12 years later, my life, it's not perfect, but it's good and it's whole. And I have a husband who loves me dearly, who loves our children dearly. I have 4 beautiful daughters, and a relationship with God that continues to grow every single day. And again, is it perfect? No. Is it still a little messy? Yes. But I'm getting to do it and walk through life with him, and that's something I didn't have before.